wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam
Waalaikumsalam
warahmatullahi
warahmatullahi
wabarakatuh.
Oke,
wabarakatuh.
good morning, selamat pagi, salam sejahtera untuk kita semua, Bapak Ibu.
Morning,
Uh,
ma'am.
yes, thank you. Today we are going to continue our lessons about advanced linguistic, and functional linguistic. And this is the first time for you to do group presentation, right? So group one, hopefully you have already prepared your presentation for today. Before coming to our presentation, I would like to check your presences first. Sebentar ya, saya mau ini dulu. Where is it? Okay. Presences. Di saya masih 19 orang ya. The students here. Sudah saya ini juga tadi. Sudah saya refresh. Oke. Putri Andini, Kameswara.
Present, ma'am.
Oke, thank you. Uni Handayani.
Yes, ma'am.
Where are you? Oke, thank you. Yes. Rahmati Kurata
Yes, ma'am.
Aini. Ya, mana Rahmati?
Saya hadir.
Oke, baru kelihatan. Thank you. Kemudian Arif Purnama.
Yes, ma'am.
Ya, Pak Arif. Oke, thank you, Pak. Liga Valiansyah.
Present, ma'am.
Liga, where are you? Belum terlihat, Pak Liga.
I'm here, ma'am.
Nah, oke, good. Ya, perlu waktu, takes time untuk muncul di layar saya. Oke. Tuhu Wiono, Pak Tuhu
Present,
ada?
ma'am.
Oke,
Halo.
thank you. Yes. Putri Ngamirabaya.
Yes, ma'am.
Oke. Sofiatul Ilmah.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, oke. Twini Zulia Pridayana.
Present, ma'am.
Oke, thank you. Nurlina.
Present, ma'am.
Oke, mana? Bu Nurlina? Belum
I'm
kelihatan?
here. Can you hear my
Oh iya,
voice? I'm
ya,
here.
iya. Bisa terlihat. Terima kasih.
Yes.
Hasanah.
Present, ma'am.
Oke. Mary Yanti.
Present, ma'am.
Ini yang Florence Mary ya? Bu
Ya,
Florence.
Ibu.
Yes.
Oh iya. Oke, thank you.
Ya, Ibu.
Nice
Maaf,
glasses,
matanya
Bu.
lagi sakit, Bu.
Iya,
Pakai
makanya nice
kacamata.
glasses. Oke. Rahayu Erlina. Ibu Rahayu ada? Oh, oke, nggak ada ya. Atifatur Rahmania.
Yes, ma'am.
Oke. Fitri Maulidah. Fitri Maulidia.
Yes, ma'am.
Oke, thank you. Zahro Salsabila.
Present, ma'am.
Mana Ibu Zahro? Belum terlihat.
Present.
Oke, thank you. Esther Suryani Banjar.
Yes, ma'am.
Oke, thank you. Kelihatan Ibu Esther. Haris ada? Ini Bapak ya?
Iya,
Haris.
izin, ma'am. Tadi dia mau ke apa lagi sakit.
Oh,
Mau
sakit.
infus dulu ke dokternya. Dokternya datang ke rumah.
Tapi
Ya.
belum hadir di pekan sebelumnya belum juga ya?
Belum,
Harus.
karena lagi itu. Tadi
Belum
dia
hadir.
masuk,
Kemarin
terus
disampaikan sakit yang minggu
sakit.
lalu.
Ya,
Iya,
ada
jadi
suratnya itu.
belum
Baru hari
ketemu
ini.
ya, berarti
Ya.
kan?
Belum,
Oke,
belum.
thank you.
Ya.
Astri Permatasari,
Yes, ma'am.
gimana Ibu Astri belum terlihat? Nah, oke, thank you. Oke. Baik, ada yang belum dipanggil, Bapak Ibu? 19 sudah semua ya, berarti yang absen hari ini Rahayu Erlina, kemudian Haris. Oke, saya simpan ya, Bapak Ibu.
Haris ada,
Haris
Bu?
ada loh.
Tadi
Haris
sakit
ini
ya?
ada.
Oh, ada.
Ada on
Ada.
cam itu, Bu. On cam.
On cam.
Oh ya, ya ini udah datang.
Oh ya Pak, salam kenal Pak. Kemarin nggak kelihatan ya Pak, nggak kelihatan, nggak hadir. Oke, baik Pak. Sebentar, tadi saya bikinnya sakit sih, sebentar Pak. Oke.
The first meeting I got sick. Yes.
Oh ya, the first meeting ya. How are you today Pak? Is it okay? Sudah baik?
Alhamdulillah.
Better than
Better.
before ya? Oke.
Yes. Alhamdulillah.
Ya, thank you. Oh ya, Pak Haris berarti hadir. Ini simpan. Ya, oke. Oke. Today we are going to discuss about history sebetulnya ya, Bapak Ibu. Oh, ini belum keluar. The history of linguistic ya. the development of linguistic theory actually start from ancient, medieval, and modern times will be presented by Group 1 belong to Ibu Liga Fahliansyah, Uni Handayani, Putri Ngawirabaya.
Itu
Ya, is
Bapak
that right?
Liga, Ibu.
Oh,
Bapak
itu
Liga. Iya, maaf.
Bapak Liga, sorry.
Iya.
Ya, Liga Fahliansyah. Oke. Baik, silakan Bapak Ibu, the screen is yours.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Let
Mhm.
me share the screen first.
Have you share the PPT in your group? Sudah di-share belum di grup? Belum ya?
Di grup belum, ma'am.
Belum ya, di grup mata kuliah maksudnya. Oke, silakan nanti di-share ya.
Okay, wait a minute, ma'am. Okay. Is it clear, everyone?
Not yet.
Iya,
Kalau di
ma'am.
saya belum. Oh ya, oke, sudah. Enjoy.
Yes. Oh ya.
Okay. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam
Waalaikumsalam
warahmatullahi
warahmatullahi
wabarakatuh.
wabarakatuh.
Okay, good morning, everyone. So how are you today? Yeah, I hope it's always good all the time.
Fine.
First of all, we would like to thank our lecturer, Dr. Mayang, and all of our friends for giving us the opportunity to have a presentation today. In this presentation, our group, Liga Fahliansyah, Putri Ngawirabaya, and Uni Handayani, will discuss about the topic in here, the development of linguistic theory in ancient, medieval, and modern times. We hope this presentation can give you clear information and useful insights about the topic. So without further ado, let's begin. Okay, so about ancient, medieval, and modern times. Okay, when we talk about the development of linguistic theory in ancient times, it's important to remember that it didn't start as one single subject. Different civilizations come up with their own ideas about language for their own reasons. The big three, India, Greece, and Rome here. Yeah, actually in India, the person is Panini. The study of language was deeply connected to religion. People believe that their sacred hymns, called the Vedas, would only have power if they were recited perfectly. Because of that, scholars paid really close attention to Sanskrit. The most famous one was Panini. Around the 5th century BCE, he wrote a book called Astadhyayi with almost 4,000 rules about Sanskrit. But it wasn't just a boring description. His grammar could actually produce correct sentences and block the wrong ones. Almost like a computer program. Pretty amazing for something written more than 2,000 years ago. And then the second one here we have ancient Greece. Now in Greece, the study of language was part of philosophy. They weren't so focused on memorizing rules. They were more curious about the big questions. One big debate was about words and meaning. Are words naturally connected to their meanings, or we know as species, or are they just agreed upon by people, or we know it nomos? This was called the nature versus convention debate. Plato and Aristotle start classifying words into nouns, verbs, and so on. Aristotle's ideas about logic and language influenced Western thoughts for centuries. Then came two Stoics, who really took grammar seriously. They divided words into more categories like prepositions and conjunctions, and they also explored how words like signifiers relate to ideas signified and real-world objects. Next, Alexandrians in here, especially Hellenistic Egypt, focus on preserving and analyzing Greek texts. They were the scholars who studied classic in detail, creating commentaries and refining grammar. They also paid attention to things like pronunciation, and then accent and word forms. Finally, Dionysius Rex wrote wrote The Art of Grammar around 100 BCE. This was the first formal grammar book in the Western world, and he introduced the 8 parts of speech model that influenced Latin and later European languages. The last one is from ancient Rome. The Romans learned a lot from the Greeks, but they were more practical. They wanted clear rules for Latin because it was needed for government and education. A scholar named Varro, in here, the person, Varro, wrote about the regular and irregular patterns in Latin. Later, Donatus and Priscian, from Rome also, wrote textbooks that were used for centuries in school. Basically, if you studied grammar in the Middle Ages, you were probably using their books. So in summary, we know that in here, India focus on precision and perfect rules. And then the second, Greece mixed philosophy with grammar. And then the Stoic and Alexandrians making major contributions. And the last one here, Rome made grammar practical and turned into textbook. Yeah, and then next will be explained by my friend Liga. Please, time is yours.
Okay, thank you, Miss. I would like to explain about introduction to Middle English. I take from the book by Simon Horobin and Jeremy Smith. Next slide, Miss. And the times and how to name it and the years of English, it has 4 different era. The first one is Old English or Anglo-Saxons. It's the years from 0 years up to 1,100 years, and Middle English, it's around 1,100 until 1,500 years, and Modern English from 1,500 years, and now present day English or PDE. Next slide, Miss. Okay. What did Middle English look like? This is the example from Middle English from the book Central Midlands 1,080 years. The text is about the prayer from the Christians. It's the original text from Middle English, and now we use PDE or present day English. Like at the first lines in the Middle English, Our Father, it means our Father. Why the word looks like that? Because English is developed by French and have influence with Latin. This is the Middle English look like. Difference with present day English. Next slide, Miss. And the historical background of Middle English. Middle English is around 1,100 years until 1,500 years, developed after the Norman conquest of 1066. Norman conquest when William the Conqueror and the Normans took control of England, they brought their own language. Norman French became the language of the court, government, and nobility, while Old English remained the language of common people. The language that had developed in English since that Anglo-Saxon, over time Old English, and Norman French mix, leading to deep change in vocabulary, spelling, and grammar. For several centuries, England was essentially a bilingual society. For example, the upper classes spoke French while the common people spoke English. over time, the two languages came into contact and began to influence one to another. Thousands of French words entered English and vice versa, especially in areas such as law, government, religion, art, literature, and daily life. At the same and many complex inflection endings of Old English more lost and word order become more regular. Next slide, Miss. The phonology of Middle Times English. During the Middle English period, the sound system of English changed in important ways. Some of the special Old English letters disappeared from writing. For example, the pronoun song or eighth, which represented the th sound in words like thing or this, began shifting, were gradually replaced by the two-letter spelling th that we still use in modern English today. And addition, the pronunciation of vowels begins to shift. And the morphology in Middle Times is Old English had a complex system of inflections, meaning that nouns, pronouns, adjectives, and verbs had different endings to mark case, gender, number, and tenses. For example, Old English nouns had case endings for nominative, accusative, dative, and genitive, similar to modern German or Latin. In Middle English, most of these endings disappeared were greatly reduced. As a result, nouns and adjectives became more simpler or became more simplified. Next slide, Miss. And the syntax of Middle English, the word order they use is SVO, subject, verb, and object became dominant. And auxiliary verbs like do, have, will started to be used more often. Because the inflection were lost, Middle English relied more heavily to grammatical the standard subject SVO, subject verb object, and the vocabulary in Middle English heavy borrowing from French and Norman French. It's influeed by their leader Norman French, became the language of the ruling classes, and English absorbed 1,000 words from French. These words borrowing connected with government, law, art, and culture. And Latin also have influence in religion sector, education, and science. At the same time, the major source of new words, especially from church and scientific and academic terms, is influenced by Latin. Okay, the next slide, modern times of English, will be explained by my partner, Miss Uni Handayani.
Thank you, Mr. Riga, and thank you, Ms. Putri. Now I will explain about the modern times of linguistics. It's about the 19th century, about historical comparative linguistics. This is the first time linguistic modern developing by combined research. As we can see here, I have written the point regarding 19th century linguistic modern. The first point is about before entering the 19th century, language study were more normative and philological. It means that before 19th century, that is 18th century in Europe country, India and Arab world, language were studied to maintain the tradition of classical Latin, Greek, and focus on grammatical analysis. For example, like Miss Putri and Miss Rika explained, these are Panini and Sibawais that by the end of the 18th century, the idea emerged that modern language might have originated from the same ancient language. In the 18th century, a new idea that modern language began to entry point for scientific linguistics in the 19th century. And the second point is about in the early 19th century, some scholars began to develop method for comparing language more systematically. This is the era of the birth of modern linguistics. Why we call the birth of modern linguistics in this era? Because it is only during this time the language was studied with scientific method, not just descriptive normative. So in this era, there have effort to reconstruct language by comparing them with modern language. Linguistics become an independent scientific discipline, not just a part philosophy, theology, and literature. This means in this era, several scientists began developing methods to compare language more systematic, and several experts began to search a pattern of relationship within language using scientific method. And the last point about historical comparative linguistics is a branch of linguistics that study how language change over time. This study is about how different language relate to each other based on their historical evolutions. This branch is highly focused on identifying and understanding the linguistic change that occur over long time periods, as well as using comparative approach to uncover relationship within seemingly different language. It is close related to the study of origins of language and how they develop, focus on the historical and comparative aspect of language. And the next, Miss Putri. And this is slide. I will introduce several pioneering figures of 19th century linguistics, such as Romus Raux, Jacob Grimm, Willem van Helmont, August Seilchers. And the group as the neo-grammarian is of the made unique contribution that shape of the foundation of modern linguistics. Miss, back to Franz Bopp. Okay, thank you. Franz Bopp was the figure from German. As the first pioneering figure in developed linguistic history, comparative 19th century, his first important work about comparing the verb conjugation system of Sanskrit, Latin, James, Greek, Persian, and Germanic language. Through this study, Bopp saw that the similarity between these languages were not just coincidence, but from a genetic relationship. This research is seen as the beginning of modern comparative linguistics, and he created a systematic comparative grammar of several Indo-Europe languages, including Sanskrit, classical language, and Germanic. With his analysis, he saw how these languages are related and developed from one common ancestor, later known as Proto-Indo-Europe. Bopp's contribution is very important because he changed the study of language from only speculations. Why Franz Bopp is called the father of modern comparative linguistics, and is one of the main founder of Indo-European. His idea influenced many linguistics of his time and also gave a strong methodological foundation that's still used in linguistics today. And the next slide. Romus Raux, comparative phonetics. Romus Raux is a Danish linguist who played an important role in the early development of comparative linguistics. In his study, Raux carefully compared Old Norse and Old English with other languages and saw that it belonged to the Indo-Europe language family. And what made Romus Romus Rack Special, he is focused on comparative phonetic study about systematic sound change between related language. He believed that similarity in sound patterns were the key of probing real language relationship. Rack also pointed out important correspondence between Germanic and other Indo-Europe language, which later influenced Jacob Grimm in formulating Grimm's law. And the next is about the third pioneer, Jacob Grimm. Jacob Grimm was linguistic, also famous as one of the brother Grimm. About the historical development of the Germanic language is the first Germanic sound shape. This law explains the regular and systematic change of consonant sounds Proto-Indo-Europe into the German language. For the example, like V in Latin Peter and become after father. Okay, and Grimm discovered saw that some change in language not random, but follow clear and predictable patterns. Because of this, he is considered one of founders of modern historical linguistics, and his sound law become cornerstone for other research in comparative linguistics. And the next is Wilhelm von Humboldt. Was German philosopher and linguist who focused on the deep connection between language and touch. He believed that language is not only a tool for communication, but also a way of shaping how people think and see the world. According to Humboldt, every language has own structure that influence the worldview of its speaker. This idea sometimes called the concept of language as worldview. The Humboldt also said that language is never finished. It is an ongoing process that grows, change with human thought. Its history strongly influenced later development in linguistics, philosophy, and anthropology. And the next is August Schleicher. August Schleicher, he was a German linguist who is the best creating the theory of language trees, called Stammbaum theory. Stammbaum theory in German. He believed that language, like living organisms, are born, grow, change, and eventually is die. In his major work, Compendium of Comparative Grammar of the European language, Schleicher saw how Indo-Europe language could be arranged in the three models with one common ancestor at the root and different branch for each language family. This was the first time family tree diagram was used in linguistics to explain how languages are related and how they split from common source. And this is a picture about theory of language trees in Europe or in the European language. This is, for example, pictures about English, French, German, Spanish, Italian, and Dutch. This is picture show the Indo-Europe language family. All the language in this family come from one language called Proto-Indo-Europe or VEI. From VEI, many different branches grew, and from this branch, we got the model language we use today. This is Cyrillic. Okay, next. Neo-Grammarians. Neo-Grammarians was a group of German linguistics in the late 19th century, especially in Leipzig. Their most famous members were Karl Bruckmann and then Hermann Absalon. They introduced the principle of absolute sound law, which means that sound change in language happen regular and without exception. This idea made the study of language more scientific because it saw that language change follow rules, not random mistake. The neo-grammarians also believe that to understand language history, linguistics must carefully study phonetic and collect detailed data. Their strict methods strongly influence modern historical linguistics and are still important for comparative study today. Okay, that's all for our presentations. Thank you. And now we will open the questions. Anyone who want to ask, please do so. Anyone who want to ask, please? Okay. Okay, Miss. The first. Miss Sophie, ya. Miss Sophie?
Well, thank you so much for the presentation. From the first group, I will giving question. The first question is analyze the shift from philosophy-based linguistics in ancient times to religion-based linguistics in the medieval period. And the question is, what similarities and differences can you identify in their method of studying language? Thank you.
What similarities and what?
What differences?
Oh,
What
difference.
similarities?
Thank you, Miss Sophie. Next question from Miss Twinnie, please.
Thank you for group one. I want to ask compare the main objective of linguistic studies in ancient India, ancient Greece, and medieval Europe. How do these objectives reflect the cultural and intellectual priorities of each era? That's my question.
Thank you so much, Miss Twinnie, for the question. Is there any more question, guys?
Maybe for me, Miss.
Oh, yes, please, Mr. Haris.
All right, the first I want to say thank you for the first group. All right, the first you talk about linguistic. Explain how the invention of printing and the Renaissance movement and transition from medieval to modern linguistic studies. So, what evidence can you provide about it? It's clear.
Will you please repeat, Mr. Haris?
Okay. Explain about how the invention of printing and the Renaissance movement influenced the transition from medieval to modern linguistic studies. So what evidence can you provide about it?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Harif. It's clear enough. Yeah, so we have three questions here. I'm trying to answer Miss Twinnie's question. Miss Twinnie, hello.
Yeah, Miss Putri.
Let me repeat the question. Your question is compare the main goals of studying language in ancient India, ancient Greece, and medieval Europe. And then how do these goals show what each society cared about the most? That's the question, yeah? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so actually in ancient India, Panini, the big goal from this India is to keep the Vedic text pure and correct. And then that's why Panini made super detailed grammar rules for Sanskrit, like a manual to make sure no mistake slip in. And then the second from ancient Greece, from Plato and Aristotle. Actually, the Greeks were more into the idea of language. They debated whether language comes from nature or just human agreement, like pieces and nomos. And then they also connected language to logic and philosophy. And then in medieval Europe, here language studies were tied to religion. Latin was the holy and academic language, so grammar was studied mainly to understand and interpret religious texts better. So this means India cared about the preserving sacred tradition, and then Greece cared about the big philosophical questions, and then if medieval Europe is cared about religion and theology. I hope this answer can answer your question, Mr.
Yes, it's
Miss
clear,
Nin.
Miss Tri. Thank you.
Okay, later maybe Dr. Mayang will get some additional. Thank you. Next question, my friend. Miss Uni and Mr. Lika. Oh, Miss Uni,
By
yes.
me. Will the answer about the question from Mr. Haris? I will repeat again for the questions.
Okay, wait, the first one is I want to say sorry, especially for our lecture because I can't open camera because the signal is troubles if
That's
I
okay.
open the camera.
That's
So
okay,
sorry,
Mr.
Mayang. Yeah,
Okay, that's okay.
yeah. Thank you for this.
Now I will repeat your questions. Examines how the implementation of printing and the Renaissance motivations influence the transition from medieval to modern linguistic study. What evidence can you provide? So I will ensure evidence in this printings that's about like Grammatica and publication. For example, evidence includes the publication of early printed linguistic works, such as Antonio de Nebrija Grammatica delle Lingue Calista. This is the first grammar of modern European language, and the printing press also spread dictionary and grammar of Latin, and examine how the implementation of printing and Renaissance movement influence the implementation of printing and the Renaissance helped move linguistic study from the medieval period to the modern era. Printing made books cheaper and easier to find, so grammar, dictionary, and classical text could be studied by more people. The Renaissance, with its focus on humans, brought back interest in Latin, Greek, and Hebrew, and also encouraged the study of local language. For example, Nebrija Grammatica della Lingua Castellana. A new systematic way of studying language together. This change prepare the way for modern linguistics. It is clear, Mister?
Yeah, maybe for more can understand, maybe the next maybe you can screenshot about the answer from your paper.
Okay, I will share you.
Okay, thank you.
Maybe on your WhatsApp.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I will try to answer the questions from Miss Sophie. The questions is about analyze the shift from philosophy-based linguistics in ancient time to religion-based linguistics in the medieval times. Is it correct, Miss Sophie?
Can you repeat the answer, Pak Liga?
Is your answer to analyze the shift from philosophy-based linguistics in ancient times to religion-based linguistics in medieval period? And what similarities and difference from the ancient times and medieval period, Miss?
Well, thank you. The answer is clear enough.
Okay. So the question from Miss Sophie is, in ancient times, the study of language was closely connected to philosophy. Thinkers like Plato and Aristotle asked questions about how words related to reality and the truth. They wanted to know whether words were natural or just made by agreement, and how language could show human thought. And during the medieval times, the focus of language studies shifted toward religion. In both the Islamic and Christian, scholars studied language mainly to protect and explain holy texts such as the Quran and the Bible. The goal was to make sure people recited, translated, and interpreted the scriptures correctly. And language was seen as a gift from God, so using it properly was very important. This made grammar and rules of language not just about communication, but about protecting religious truth. The similarity from these ancient times and medieval times is they saw language as very important tools, not just for everyday life, but also for reaching a higher truth, to find the meaning from the language. And maybe that's it from my answer, Miss. Sorry if I'm mistaken.
Thank you, Pak Liga.
Yeah, you're welcome, Miss. Maybe that's it from our groups. We do apologize if we have mistakes. Thank you for your nice attention. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Is there any questions or gimana? Good enough for your friend's presentation? The first term tadi sudah selesai ya. Maybe if you have some question. Atau there is no question anymore? Beruntung nih kelompok penyanyi kalau nggak ada lagi pertanyaan ya. Aman ya.
Maybe no.
No questions?
No.
Okay. If there is no question, maybe you may conclude. Tadi sudah ada conclusion ya from your presentation, group 1?
Sudah, ma'am.
Okay, sudah, but it's finished, right? Okay, thank you. Okay. Bentar. Okay, thank you very much for your presentation, group 1, about the development of linguistic theory, ancient, medieval, and modern times. I think you have successfully outlined the main stages of linguistic thought, starting from the philosophical roots in ancient times, right? Through the scholastic and religious influence in the medieval period, and then the scientific and structural approaches in modern linguistics. I appreciate how your group connected the key thinkers and theories to the broader intellectual and cultural context of each era. The flow was clear, I think, and the content showed a good understanding of the evolutions of ideas in linguistic. And also, thank you for your answer from your friends. Yeah, the discussions well structured. tracing the trajectory of linguistic thought from its philosophical and grammatical origins in antique through the scholastic and theological concerns of the medieval period. Tadi ada pertanyaannya juga ya. So I would like to highlight ya, saya akan meng-highlight what we have discussed today. Sebentar, saya izin ini ya, show. Where is it? Oke, ini. Share. Ini sudah terlihat Bapak Ibu?
Sudah, ma'am.
Oke ya, sebentar. Where is it? Yeah, sometimes new concept of historical names may sounds a bit abstract ya bagi kita ya. Mungkin teman-teman yang baru mendengar konsep baru tentang nama-nama baru mungkin agak a little bit abstract. And you have asked some question tadi ya. Nah, ini saya akan meng-highlight. Semoga bisa meng-catch the ideas of our topic today. Where is it? Sebentar. Oh, ini ya. Ini kalau saya geser bisa berpindah ya, Bapak Ibu? Bisa ya, oke. Bentar, slideshow, where is it? Slideshow, oke. Nah, ini ya. Nah, ini, where is it? Nah, according to Robbins, 1967, he provides a chronological account of the development of linguistic thought. There are 7, yeah. He emphasizes how linguistic inquiry has evolved and adapted through various historical and cultural contexts ya. Yang pertama itu ancient Greece, Rome, the Middle Ages, the Renaissance tadi yang ditanyakan, and after the eve of modern times, 19th century comparative and historical linguistic, and then linguistic in the present century ya, nowadays. Nah, ini dia the 7 historical context of linguistic outlined by Robbins can be grouped into 3 major eras ya, based on linguistic thought. Jadi berdasarkan pemikiran-pemikiran linguistik ya, metodologi yang digunakan, and the role of language the study in society. Maka 7 konteks sejarah bahasa itu bisa dibagi menjadi 3 ya Bapak Ibu. Ancient era consists of ancient Greece and Rome, kemudian medieval era, the Middle Ages, dan kemudian modern era. Nah, ini mungkin agak lebih banyak sampai ke linguistic in the present century. Nah, kita lihat, nah ancient, ya, ancient and Rome. Nah, ini kita compare ya, jadi bisa terlihat ya komparasinya nanti. Greek philosophers were some of the first systematically reflect on language. Plato itu the pioneersnya with his Cratylus dialogue ya, question the natural versus conventional nature of words, while Aristotle focused ya, muridnya Plato ya, on logical structures and classifications of words and their meanings. Ya, dulu kan belum sebanyak sekarang ya. Even kelas kata, for example, tuh hanya beberapa, sangat sedikit. Nah, sekarang sudah berkembang sangat banyak. Tapi mereka adalah founding fathers ya untuk linguistic. The Stoic also further develop the theories about syntax and phonetics. Tadi juga sudah dijelaskan dengan tokoh-tokohnya, and Alexandrian scholars like Dionysius Thrax formalized grammar study, creating one of the earliest grammatical tradition. Nah, in Rome linguists, notably Pharaoh, tadi juga sudah dijelaskan ya, extended Greek linguistic theories but adapted them for Latin. Yeah. Latin grammarians were largely concerned with preserving and teaching Latin for legal, literary, and rhetorical purposes. And also Robbins highlights how Romance linguistic thought laid the groundwork for the grammatical tradition that influenced Europe for centuries. Nah, medieval era, in the Middle Ages, this era is marked by the transmission of linguistics knowledge through religious scholars in Europe and the Arab world. Medieval scholars were interested in the philosophical aspect of language. Tadi sudah dijelaskan juga, linking language study to the theology. Ya, jadi memberikan dasar bagaimana kemudian bahasa itu dihubungkan ya dengan studi-studi teologi. Latin remained the dominant language of scholarship, but there was also growing interest in vernacular languages. Ya. Arab scholars tadi juga sudah like si bawah made significant contribution to phonetics and grammar. Ya. Now we come to modern era, the Renaissance. And after, ini tidak bisa kita lepaskan Renaissance ini ya sebagai pilar dia ya, the eve of modern times. The Renaissance saw the revival of classical learning leading to a renewed focus on the ancient languages such as Greek, Latin, and Hebrew. There was a growing appreciation of language diversity and descriptive grammars of modern European languages emerged. This period also saw the birth of lexicography, ya, karena tadi juga ada printing tadi ya, with efforts to codify and standardize languages through dictionaries and grammars. Jadi berkembangnya sampai seperti itu ya, karena kemajuan teknologi. The eve of modern times. In the 7th centuries and 18th centuries, philosophers and linguists such as Leibniz and John Locke explored the relationship between language, thought, and society. This period also witnessed the beginnings of historical linguistics as scholars began to notice systematic correspondence between languages, setting the stage for later developments in comparative linguistics. Jadi linguistik perbandingan. Nah, 19th century comparative and historical linguistics dengan linguistik in the present century. Ini kita lihat. Jadi mungkin nanti Bapak Ibu bisa mengcapture ya poin-poin dari setiap fase perkembangan ini. So the 19th century is dominated by the rise of historical linguistics with key figures like Jacob Grimm, tadi sudah disampaikan juga, Rasmus Rask and Franz Bopp, ya. Kan sudah ada fotonya juga tadi ya, Bu ya. Kemudian these scholars developed the methods of comparative linguistics, tracing the historical relationship between languages, particularly Indo-European languages. This period also saw the formulations of linguistic law, such as Grimm's law, which describes regular sound changes in the history of languages. Now, in linguistics in the present century, Robbins covers the major shifts in the 20th century, including the rise of structuralism led by Ferdinand de Saussure, itu Bapak linguistik modern ya, Bapak Ibu digelarinya Saussure, and the revolution in linguistics brought about by Chomsky, ya, Noam Chomsky's theory in generative grammar. Ini tonggak-tonggak munculnya linguistik modern oleh dua tokoh yang kita sudah kenal ya, Saussure and Chomsky. And then structuralists focus on the relationship between elements in language, fonologi, morfologi, dan seterusnya. While Chomsky introduced the idea that language is a system of rules governed by an innate mental faculty. Yeah. Other movements like sociolinguistics, psycholinguistics, and computational linguistics are also discussed in this era. Nah, now we are... Oke, sebentar ya Bapak Ibu. Okay, now we are going to compare between ancient, medieval, and modern time linguistic theory, so you can catch the ideas about each levels. Nah, ini dia, ini ancient linguistic, Greek and Roman period ya. Nah, fokusnya di mana ini untuk ancient linguistic? Nah, fokusnya adalah nature and functions of language. Jadi, fokusnya kepada nature and function of language, bahasa tersebut. Relationship between words and their meanings, ya, natural versus conventional. Tadi juga sudah lihat kan bagaimana perubahan-perubahannya. Dan development of grammatical frameworks for specific languages, especially in Greek and Latin. Ini bahasa apa ya yang sangat sudah tua sekali gitu ya, dan memang apa ya untuk sistem grammarnya cukup complicated ya, maka disimplify nanti ya setelah itu di bahasa-bahasa modern setelahnya ya, like English gitu ya, yang sekarang gitu. Kemudian key figures, nah ini tokoh-tokohnya siapa saja, ini tadi ya Plato, ya. Explored whether language is natural or conventional. Aristotle developed categories of words ya, tadi kelas kata itu kan ada di Aristotle dan dikembangkan gitu ya. Syntax and logic juga karena mereka memang philosopher ya. Kemudian Dionysius Thrax ya created one of the first grammatical description, Greek grammar, tata bahasa Latin ya, and Pharaoh in Rome extended Greek ideas focus on Latin grammar. Nah, tata bahasa Latin. Oke. Ini apa core ideasnya. Nah, key contribution untuk si ancient linguistic ini apa gitu ya? What are the key contributions? Introduction of the idea of grammar as a formalized system. Jadi sudah mulai ada apa ya pengenalan sistem formal ya secara tertulis terhadap tata bahasa, ide-ide tata bahasa sebetulnya, cikal bakal sebetulnya ya, introduction of the idea, baru pengenalan gitu ya, bahwa ternyata untuk bahasa itu memiliki tata bahasa dan kemudian ada ide-ide yang dikembangkan di situ. Kemudian emphasis on logical and structural analysis of language, itu sudah terlihat ya bagaimana kemudian sistematikanya itu dibangun gitu ya, di bahasa itu bukan chaos combination for example, tapi dia memiliki pola-pola yang tersistematis begitu. Kemudian early work on phonetics and syntax ya, Stoic and Alexandrians. Main concern untuk era ini adalah defining parts of speech and sentence structure. Dia sudah mulai mendefinisikan gitu ya kelas-kelas kata, benar struktur-struktur kalimat gitu sudah mulai muncul di sini. Preserving classical languages ya, Latin, Greek for legal, literary and scholarly purposes. Oke, next kita masuk ke medieval linguistic ya. Tadi ingat tadi ya apa saja key contribution, main concern dan kemudian idea serta key figures-nya. Nah, untuk medieval linguistics fokusnya di mana ya? Preservation of linguistics knowledge, especially within theological context ya, memang masih berdasarkan konteks-konteks teologi. Analysis of language in relations to logic and philosophy, language as a part of scholastic education. Kemudian development of grammars for vernacular languages alongside Latin. Jadi masih tetap fokusnya ke bahasa Latin ya. Kemudian key figures-nya siapa saja? Isidore of Seville compiled encyclopedic knowledge, including linguistic ideas. Sibawa, Arabic tradition, contributed to phonetics and Arabic grammar. And then medieval grammarians within the Christian and Islamic world who kept ancient linguistic tradition alive. Jadi banyak ya sejumlah tokoh-tokoh di agama Kristen dan Islam ya, tokoh Kristen dan Islam. And key contribution untuk era ini ya, transmissions of ancient Greek and Roman ideas through religious and educational institution. Jadi sudah mulai perpindahan dari ancient Greek and Roman ideas through religious and educational institution. Ya, further explorations of language as a tool for understanding theology and philosophy. Jadi masih menjadikan language as a tool ya for understanding theology and philosophy. Jadi belum specific to language or linguistic. Rise of descriptive grammar in vernacular languages. Dan main concerns, theological implications of language, ya. Kemudian study of language in relation to divine truths and scripture. Preservation and teaching of Latin, as well as some development of grammars for Arabic and European vernaculars, ya, bahasa-bahasa Eropa, gitu. Nah, kita masuk ke modern linguistic, ya. Modern linguistic 19th until 20th century, abad ke-20 ya, Bapak Ibu. Kita lihat fokusnya di mana sekarang gitu ya. In the 19th century, linguistic was primarily concerned with the scientific study of language. Nah, ini udah mulai tuh. Kalau tadi masih ke religion, teologi ya, filosofi, maka di modern ini sudah mulai primarily concerned with the scientific study of language. Jadi sudah ada apa ya concern terhadap studi ilmiah terhadap bahasa itu sendiri. Nah, kemarin kita sudah bahas ya the definitions of linguistic. Jadi not only the study of language tapi the scientific study. Jadi sudah ada studi ilmiahnya sudah dimulai di abad ke-19 ya. Sudah ada langkah-langkah ilmiah untuk mendefinisikan bahasa itu sehingga bisa disejajarkan dengan bidang-bidang ilmu yang lain ya. And their historical development leading to the rise of comparative and historical linguistic. Jadi memang tetap based on studi komparasi dan kemudian bagaimana perjalanan linguistik tersebut berdasarkan fase-fase sejarahnya. Jadi kalau kita bisa bilang ya secara diakronis maupun sinkronis gitu. Ini sudah mulai di sini. So the 20th century shifted to exploring language as both a cognitive and social phenomenon. Yang di abad ke-20 ya, shifted to ya. Kalau tadi dia concerned with the scientific study of language dan sekarang sedang shifted to exploring language as both ya, tidak hanya sebagai cognitive and social tapi emphasizing the formalization of linguistic structures and searching for universal principles that apply to all languages. Jadi kalau kemarin-kemarin itu masih rujukannya ke bahasa Latin. Nah, dimulai di abad 19 itu sudah mulai terbuka gitu kan, ada scientific study, maka ternyata konsep-konsep bahasa Latin itu tidak bisa diterapkan untuk ke semua bahasa ya atau general language itu. Maka kemudian sudah mulai muncul pemahaman bagaimana kemudian searching for universal principles that apply to all languages. Jadi tidak hanya ke bahasa Latin, kemudian ke bahasa Inggris atau bahasa Eropa, tapi ke semua bahasa sudah mulai difikirkan. Nah, ini key figures ya, ini berkembangnya cukup luar biasa gitu dari 1920 gitu ya. Lompatannya memang luar biasa. Sebenarnya tadi itu ya dimulai dari Saussure sebetulnya. Saussure and Chomsky itu memang peletak dasar yang sangat kuat sehingga berkembangnya linguistik di masa 1920 itu berkembang pesat gitu ya. Nah, Jacob Grimm, Franz Bopp, ya ini juga tadi sudah disampaikan, pioneers in comparative and historical linguistics, whose work laid the foundation for the study of how languages evolve and are related. Ya, bagaimana dia berevolusi dan kemudian berhubungan satu sama lain. And then Saussure, Ferdinand de Saussure, considered the father of modern structuralism. Jadi bapak strukturalisme gitu ya kita sebutnya gitu. Saussure introduced key ideas like the linguistic sign ya, tanda-tanda bahasa ya Bapak Ibu ya, signifier, signified mungkin sudah juga paham gitu ya. Nah, ini betul-betul apa ya? Saya pun juga melihat ya. Makanya kalau dia muslim ini sedekah jariahnya luar biasa ya untuk linguistik itu. Pasti akan terus mengalir karena memang dasarnya sekuat itu gitu ya. Karena sudah mulai ada signifier, signified, jadi menghubungkan ranah-ranah tataran innate dengan yang di luar bahasa dan dia bisa mulai membagi itu gitu sehingga terbuka ya pandangan kita gitu dan bisa membuat inovasi-inovasi di bidang linguistik ke depannya gitu. Jadi signified and emphasize the importance of synchronic itu tadi saya bilangnya studying language as a specific point in time. Jadi tidak hanya diachronic tapi synchronic gitu ya versus diachronic ya, studying language change over time. Jadi dia menggabungkan ya historically ya dengan data-data at the time ya. Jadi synchronic and diachronic itu. Kemudian Chomsky ya in the mid 20th century itu juga beliau revolutionized linguistic by proposing generative grammar ya, tata bahasa generatif ya Bapak Ibu, bagaimana dia mendeskripsikan sintaksis itu luar biasa juga. And the theory of innate language faculty suggesting the humans being biologically programmed to learn language yang kemarin kita bahas ya, definisi bahasa menurut Chomsky masih ingat ya, sesuatu yang terbatas bisa memproduksi sesuatu yang tidak terbatas kan gitu. Makanya luar biasa gitu ya kemampuan. Jadi our brains is so productive, right? Nah, itu di situ. Jadi Chomsky ini. Nah, key contribution. Nah, kontribusi apa yang diberikan di 19th until 20th century ini terhadap bahasa? Comparative and historical linguistics in the 19th century developed methods for reconstructing adapting ancestral languages and understanding the evolutions of language families, particularly Indo-European languages. Nah, ini dia. Jadi studi komparasi dan tadi itu ya sinkroniknya itu in the 19th century develop methods ya. Bagaimana kemudian membangun metode-metode untuk merekonstruksi bahasa-bahasa itu terutama di rumpun Indo-European gitu ya. Kemudian the rise of structural linguistics in the early 20th century shifted the focus to relationship within language system, laying the groundwork for understanding language as the system of sign. Jadi bahasa itu sudah menjadi sebuah sistem simbol, tidak lagi dikaitkan dengan teologi ya Bapak Ibu ya, tidak lagi dikaitkan dengan filosofi, tapi dia sudah berdiri sebagai sebuah sebuah ilmu khusus gitu ya. Sejajar dengan bidang-bidang yang lain. Gitu. Karena language is a system of science itu, ibu tanda. Nanti kan berkembang menjadi semiotik, menjadi multimodal dan segala macam itu memang luar biasa. Kemudian Chomsky generative grammar in the late 20th century introduced the idea that languages share universal principle. Nah, ini mulai masuk nih, mulai lahir bahasa atau tata bahasa universal. Tidak lagi seperti sesempit yang sebelumnya ya, hanya bahasa Latin ya. Nah, tapi ini sudah sistem yang bisa masuk ke semua bahasa ya, universal grammar. And language production is driven by cognitive mechanism. Jadi sudah ada mekanisme kognitif yang semua orang akan bisa gitu ya, masuk ke semua bahasa karena driven by cognitive mechanism. Nah, main concernnya di mana di sini ya? In the 19th century, linguists were preoccupied with historical change and the evolutions of languages through time. Ya, in the 20th century, structuralism dominated. Jadi di abad ke-20, strukturalisme itu masih mendominasi ya. Focusing on the normal relationship between language elements and how these relationship create meaning. Ya, masih mendominasi untuk strukturalisme. Tapi kesini-sini nanti akan berkembang lagi ya Bapak Ibu. Termasuk fungsional ya. Itu kan perkembangan setelah strukturalisme. Dan Chomsky's cognitive revolution in linguistics shifted attention to the mental process underlying language productions and comprehension, suggesting language is biological hardwired ya. Jadi ini Chomsky, ini peletaknya gitu. Next, nah sekarang linguistic in the present century ya. Ini zaman Bapak Ibu sekarang nih, zaman kita. Nggak tahu ya ke depannya akan seperti apa ya. Perkembangannya memang luar biasa. Fokus interdisciplinary ya, jadi pendekatannya sudah interdisiplin sekarang, bukan hanya berdiri sendiri sebagai sebuah bidang ilmu yang terisolasi, tidak, tapi sudah interdisciplinary approaches now dominate the field ya, incorporating insight from cognitive science, computational modeling, neuroscience, and sociolinguistic. Jadi sudah merambah ke disiplin-disiplin ilmu yang lainnya. The digital revolution has introduced new ways to study and process language. Bahkan sekarang mesin translation sudah berkembang ini ya, pesat sekali ya Bapak Ibu, computationalnya juga gitu ya. With advancement in computational linguistics and natural language processing NLP ya, playing in an increasing central role. Jadi saya punya teman itu S1 S2-nya itu dia ngambil computer science ya Pak. Bukan, S1-nya computer science, S2-nya dia masuk ngambil saya bareng dia itu doktoral ya. Berarti S1 S2-nya dia computer science, S3-nya dia masuk ke linguistik. Karena dia akan memperdalam NLP ini. Jadi itu keren banget gitu ya. Dia bisa menghubungkan gitu ya, bagaimana bahasa itu kemudian diproses dengan NLP ini, dengan computational ini gitu. Sebegitu concernnya dia kan untuk mendalami computational untuk bidang linguistik itu. Jadi ya kita jadi banyak belajar kan ya, karena memang secara komputernya dia udah kuat banget S1 S2 kan. Nah dia baru masuk ke S3-nya untuk itu gitu. Attention has also shifted to the social and political dimension of language. Nah ini dia ya, including issues of language documentation ya, pendokumentasian bahasa, revitalizations of endangered languages ya, bahasa-bahasa yang hampir punah ya, bagaimana melestarikannya gitu ya, mendokumentasikan dan seterusnya, and decolonizations of linguistic research. Ini fokus untuk di saat sekarang. Key figures-nya in the post-Chomskyan word, cognitive linguistic figures such as George Lakoff, mungkin Bapak Ibu juga sempat dengar ya Lakoff, and Ronald Lancaster have influenced the shift away from formalism towards seeing language as grounded in human cognition. Jadi dari formalisme menjadi human cognition. William Labov juga ya, Labov and other sociolinguists have emphasized, itu sebenarnya banyak ya untuk figur-figurnya, ini cuma beberapa yang ditampilkan di sini. The role of social context, examining how language varies across different groups and how globalization has affected language use. Jadi tidak hanya lagi karena ada mesin apa ya, printed machine gitu ya, tapi memang sudah apa ya, perkembangan ilmu pengetahuan yang luar biasa yang memang harus diikuti oleh perkembangan bahasa. Because a language can be separated from culture dan vice versa, dan sebaliknya. Budaya pun tidak bisa dilepaskan dari bahasa. Mereka interconnected. Makanya perkembangannya saling mempengaruhi. So in computational linguistics, ini tadi yang saya sampaikan, figures in deep learning and artificial intelligence, such as the developers behind transformer models like, nah ini mesin-mesin ini ya, mesin-mesin apa bahasa ya, have advanced the study of language with machine learning ya. Ini oleh Vaswani dan seterusnya. Dan salah satu juga yang saya gunakan itu ya, saya menggunakan tools untuk pengolahan bahasa ya, karena saya menggunakan linguistic corpus Bapak Ibu untuk disertasi saya itu. Kalau yang kalau untuk tanpa tools gitu ya yang biasa dilakukan untuk mengolah, kebetulan saya mengambil pidato Presiden Joko Widodo, tapi di periode pertama tahun berapa ya itu ya, kan beliau dari 2014 sampai 2019 kan periode pertama itu. Nah, itu yang saya analisis. Kalau untuk yang biasanya itu hanya 1 sampai 5, itu pun paling banyak ya untuk pidato yang sudah. Tapi kalau saya menggunakan 1.200 ya, selama periode itu. Ya kan di seluruh pidato tuh ya. Nah, itu yang kita ambil sebagai data analisis. Waktu itu saya mengambil ekstrak ide-ide ekonomi beliau gitu ya, selama proses di periode itu. Jadi kan mungkin 1-2 pidato ya, tapi semuanya dari 14 sampai 19 itu 1.200 pidatonya. Nah, itu kan mungkin manual ya kita lakukan. Maka ada tools-tools inilah yang kemudian membantu kita bagaimana mengekstrak keywords-nya, kata-kata kunci. Kemudian banyak ya fitur-fitur yang disediakan di situ sehingga kita bisa bermain gitu ya di situ. Bisa mengeksplor data-data bahasa menjadi sesuatu. Makanya kemudian saya mengambil mengekstrak itu untuk melihat ide-ide ekonomi beliau gitu. Dan itu lumayan ini ya, hampir-hampir saya agak pesimis itu untuk bisa selesaikan gitu, karena memang sebegitu banyak datanya itu. Dan ketika saya membuatnya dalam bentuk tertulis laporan gitu ya, disertasi itu sudah sampai 600-an halaman ya Bapak Ibu gitu. Nah, ini kan sebenarnya perkembangan yang luar biasa gitu ya, karena teknologi ini kita bisa mengeksplor lebih banyak lagi gitu. Oke, ini key figures-nya, kemudian sedikit lagi waktunya. Nah, key contribution, kita lihat ya. The rise of cognitive linguistic challenge the formalist views of the past by suggesting that language is deeply tied to human cognition and physical experience ya. Dan contohnya konseptual metafor ya, metafora sudah mulai dan seterusnya. Kemudian computational linguistics has made groundbreaking contribution, especially in the field of natural language processing, enabling development in machine translation, speech recognition, and text generation. Jadi saya yang termasuk text generation ya, kita menggunakan tools itu. Gitu. Kemudian neurolinguistic and psycholinguistic have flourished, providing deeper insight into how the brain processes language and the cognitive mechanism underlying language acquisition, production, and comprehension. And then the field has seen increasing focus on language documentation and revitalization, particularly in the context of endangered languages and indigenous communities. Bahkan di kita juga ya, karena kita memang luar biasa ya Bhinneka Tunggal Ika Bapak Ibu. Do you know how many local languages we have? Bapak Ibu tahu berapa bahasa daerah kita? Jumlahnya? Dari Sabang sampai Merauke? Anybody knows?
No, the
Nggak
exact
tahu. Can you guess
number,
it?
no.
Kira-kira berapa, Bu?
Maybe hundreds.
Iya,
Hundreds.
hundreds. Memang
Hundreds.
ratusan. Berapa tepatnya? Berapa ratus bahasa daerah kita?
No
Kira-kira.
idea.
Sudah ada 7 ya, Mbak. Jadi it's about 700 sih Bapak Ibu ya. Jadi bahasa daerah kita aja 700 bahasa daerah dari Sabang sampai Merauke gitu. Nah, bayangkan kalau kita tidak punya bahasa Indonesia kan, maka founding fathers kita tuh luar biasa hebatnya ya. Jadi memang apa ya, apa slogan Bhinneka Tunggal itu memang bagus, penting banget gitu ya untuk Indonesia karena sebegitu ragamnya ya, seberagam itu, bahkan bahasa pun ada 700-an bahasa daerah. Dan tahukah Bapak Ibu yang sudah masuk ke kategori apa bahasa deaf language, bukan lagi endangered ya, kita sudah punya deaf language sebetulnya. Dari 700 bahasa daerah itu sudah ada 13 bahasa yang mati. Ya tidak ada lagi penuturnya Bapak Ibu. Bayangkan gitu, itu sebetulnya sebuah kerugian bagi bangsa kita. Karena bahasa itu kan budaya atau apa warisan yang luar biasa ya. Nah, kenapa sebuah bahasa bisa terkategori deaf language? Karena memang nggak ada lagi penuturnya gitu, habis gitu. Nah, belum sempat terdokumentasikan secara writtenly-nya nggak ada gitu, maka nggak ada tuh apa dokumentasinya. Nah, ini yang sekarang mulai di zaman inilah ya, di era-era modern ini yang kemudian bahasa itu didokumentasikan. Bahkan di Indonesia pun 700 itu belum semuanya terdokumentasi ya. Yang apa yang secara ini written. Itu kan kerjanya Balai Bahasa tuh Bapak Ibu itu. Dan itu banyak banget. Dari 700 itu sudah 13 yang punah, ya endangered berapa itu juga sudah ada gitu ya. Dan the only one speaker, tinggal satu orang satu-satunya penutur, dan itu pun udah tua banget gitu ya. Untuk di record pun juga sudah susah gitu. Nah, itu ya sudah menjadi dead language tuh ya. Makanya kita kalau untuk bahasa daerah tidak harus kita apa ya, kita hindari, harus kita lestarikan sebetulnya gitu ya. Anak-anak kita juga mungkin at home di rumah kita juga menggunakan itu ya untuk melestarikan bahasa bahasa daerah kita. Kalau kalau bahasa Jawa itu sudah terdokumentasi kan ya. Jawa, Batak gitu ya, Sunda,
Sunda,
sudah ada Pak gitu.
Madura.
Minang, Padang ya, terus apa gitu. Tapi Pak kalau daerah-daerah timur itu kan tribes-nya banyak banget suku-suku ya. Suku-suku tuh jaraknya cuma nggak terlalu jauh, tapi bahasanya tuh udah beda-beda gitu. Dan itu nggak gampang mendokumentasikan tuh nggak gampang gitu. Memang harus stay di sana. Dan yang kebanyakan mendokumentasikan bahasa daerah kita juga bukan orang kita gitu, orang luar gitu. Ya, sebegitu minatnya mereka linguist itu gitu. Sampai mungkin menikah dengan kepala suku ya. Karena itu harus didokumentasikan record kan. Ingat ya, all languages itu kan sebenarnya spoken. Saya sampaikan sebelumnya. Semua bahasa itu spoken Bapak Ibu. Apa orally.
Orang.
Iya, betul. Jadi nggak ada tuh kita kalau lihat sekarang bahasa Inggris ada IPA-nya itu udah gampang banget. Bahasa Indonesia ada tuh udah bagus banget. Tapi kalau bahasa-bahasa lain apalagi bahasa daerah itu nggak ada gitu. Jadi memang harus kita duduk di situ, diam di situ, kita record gitu ya. Kemudian ambil minimal pierce-nya gitu. Jadi kita bisa menentukan mana yang fonem, mana yang tidak. Baru kemudian itu kerjanya luar biasa sih gitu ya. Dan kalau kita bisa itu kan, tapi itu kan saya bilang sedekah jariahnya juga banyak banget tuh kalau memang serius di situ gitu. Nah, yang untuk Indonesia ini sebenarnya concern juga bagi kita gitu, karena nggak semua orang mau berpayah-payah untuk itu gitu. Dan apresiasi, nah itu dia tuh apresiasi bangsa kita
Kurang.
terhadap para linguis itu masih rendah Pak gitu. Jadi orang nggak, ya ngapain sih susah-susah, mendingan yang lain gitu kan. Sedangkan guru aja apresiasinya juga rendah kita kan di bangsa kita ini, apalagi untuk sebuah bahasa. Padahal itu tantangannya kan pergi ke suku-suku itu, tinggal segala macam ya. Kalau mereka menerima, kalau mereka menolak, ya udah tuh palang apa pakai apalah gitu ya, parang segala macam gitu untuk masuk ke suku tadi gitu. Nah ini kan, nah itulah ya harusnya diapresiasikan kan harusnya luar biasa karena memang sebegitu susahnya untuk mendokumentasikan. Jadi itu ya sedikit. Well, there's also growing advocacy for the decolonization of linguistic studies, ya pushing for more inclusive and non-Western centric frameworks. Nah itu dia tuh, ya sudah mulai kan dia sudah menjadi bahasa apa tata bahasa general gitu, tidak lagi Western centric gitu ya. The study of
Izin dok, mengingatkan
masih
waktunya sudah
ya sudah habis
selesai.
ya. Oke,
Iya.
baik gitu ya. Sedikit lagi ya Bapak, ini juga
Iya.
sudah sedikit lagi kok. Nah, jadi ini yang apa fokus di apa di contemporary ya. Nah, kontemporer. Nah, ini main concern-nya ada di sini ya. Understanding cognitive neural foundation, kemudian social and political dimension sudah mulai di sini gitu ya. Kemudian dan AI dan segala macamnya gitu. Nah, ini sedikit ini updating for linguistic in the present century. Ini ada post Chomsky development. Nah, ini nanti mungkin bisa dibaca saja gitu ya. Ini kognitif linguistik, sosiolinguistik, computational, psycholinguistic ya, advanced in pragmatic discourse analysis, atau apalagi multimodal yang terbaru ya. Bapak Ibu silahkan nanti di pertemuan terakhir kan ada itu ya, trend and issues in linguistic, itu kita bisa lihat tuh perkembangan, karena nggak mungkin masing-masingnya kita bahas di waktu yang sangat singkat ini. Nah, ini key differences ya, sedikit ya Bapak Ibu, sedikit ya. Nah, untuk apa perbedaan kunci ya dari 3 era itu, untuk ancient linguistic, philosophical in nature, focus on defining basic categories of language ya, and preserving classical languages. Untuk medieval, driven by theological and philosophical interests, sementara modern linguistic more scientific and empirical, focusing on historical development ya, comparative linguistic. Nah, untuk similarities, ancient and medieval, both periods viewed language in relation to higher philosophical or theological concern. Medieval and modern, in the later medieval period, there was increasing interest in describing vernaculars, which carried into modern linguistic tradition. Nah, untuk semua era, across all three, there's a continual focus on understanding the structure of language and its function, jadi struktur, fungsi, ya whether for logical, theological, atau scientific purpose. Jadi ini persamaannya sama ya, entah tapi stressingnya yang berbeda ya fungsinya, entah itu berdasarkan logical, theological, atau berdasarkan tujuan-tujuan ilmiah. I think that's all for today. Thank you very much for joining in my class. Semoga bisa diambil poin-poinnya ya Bapak Ibu ya. Jadi nanti untuk ujian tidak perlu mengulang lagi, tapi sudah terbayang ya the point, karena our focus is understanding. Oke.
Untuk
Oke.
materinya bisa didapat di mana, Bu?
Materi yang mana Bapak?
Yang Bapak barusan disampaikan?
Oh, kalau mau bisa saya share. Itu punya saya. Itu materi saya. Oke. Nanti saya share ya. Perlu ya? Oke, baik.
Biar buat ini referensi bacaan juga.
Oke, boleh. Ya, nanti saya akan share. Ya, oke, baik. Any other question? Ada pertanyaan lagi? Jika tidak, berarti sudah selesai ya, Bapak Ibu. Siap-siap untuk kelompok 2 untuk next week. Prepare yourself, ya, better than this group, ya. That's all for today. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. See you, Bapak Ibu.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Terima kasih, Bu.
Thank you,
Sama-sama.
ma'am.
Izin ya, Bapak Ibu. Oke.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.